Liz.
How you doing?
I'm fantastic.
And why are you so fantastic?
We get to have our second interview. Our first interview was with a wonderful student named Charlie. And now, in our Voices from the Field, we have our good friend Ed Duclos joining us.
I'm so excited to talk to Ed and hear his perspective as someone that is in the field.
Yeah, I have to say, I geek out on this stuff, and Ed is really pretty much the only person who geeks right there with me, and he's also like me up at 5 o'clock in the morning, so I might get a text that says, "Hey, Matt, did you see the new feature on X, Y, or Z?" And so, I don't know. I love it. Anyhow, Ed is a tech coach in South Windsor, Connecticut, and he's going to tell us all about his work, and Ed's actually done all sorts of coaching. So, hey, Ed, how's it going?
Hey, Matt, Liz, it's great to be here.
It's great to have you. So let's start with that coach thing. You've been doing some coaching beyond tech coaching. Tell us a little bit about that.
So I've been at South Windsor High School for so many years. I lost track, but I've coached 6 different sports, athletic sports. Started as a football coach and just continued from there. Actually, 5 of them has been a head coach. Started a girls lacrosse program. Very, very proud of that. We just finished 34 years, and I'm no longer the coach there. I retired last summer, but I love sports.
I don't think I know anyone. I've met a lot of coaches. Gary Robinson on our team is one. 6 sports. That seems a little unusual, right?
These were sports that I really didn't know much about. And the joke was basically, look, how important is a coach? Ed doesn't know anything about girls soccer, and they're number 1 in the state. And it's like, yeah, the girls, it's all athletes.
Do you know anything about synchronized swimming?
None, except what I hear on the podcast.
All right, well.
Are you interested in synchronized swimming?
There's lots of synchronized swimming coaching positions open across the country.
No, I love the podcast. I've been a big fan, so I'm so excited to be here and talk.
We appreciate that. So tell us about your role and tell us about the last year, right? This is fascinating. It's the first full year where generative AI has come on the scene. You've been leading the charge and doing all sorts of work in your district. So, give us a snapshot. How's the year been?
The year's been amazing. The way my boss, Doug Kuchar, put it is it seems like we've put 2 years of work into 1 year. And I have been leading the charge, but I'm part of a much bigger team, and it's been fantastic to watch. If we could go all the way back, you go back to 2022, and when November 30th, when ChatGPT is released, we were one of the school districts that said, no, we're not shutting it down. We're not blocking it, banning it. Doug did quite the opposite. He encouraged upper administration to use it. He encouraged everybody to use it, which was absolutely wonderful. We then ran 2 different, what we call AI summits. One was in January of 23, and then later in May of 23. And we just opened it up to anybody and everybody, and we had over 40 people from district admin, teachers, et cetera, just interested in what artificial intelligence was. And like everybody else, we didn't have a clue what was going on. A year ago, this spring was, oh my God, everybody was up in arms that AI was writing papers, and how can we detect? Oh, we do have detectors. Okay, good. Oh, I caught this one. But we weathered the storm, got through that. And out of all that, the teachers that were interested, we put together an AI squad. And we already had an Inc. crew. And the Inc. crew basically, I guess, loosely call it Tech squad, but Inc. standing for innovators in the classroom.
Nice.
It's those innovators, those early adopters, and so we were on a monthly basis. And this goes back 9 years that I was I have been a tech coach. And basically, this is where we would get information out. What are the tech changes? What are innovation that we can be putting in the classroom? And representation from each of the departments. So the AI squad now really just took the focus on artificial intelligence and started to really just look at that. And they were responsible for getting that information out to the departments. So here we are up to this school year. Now we have artificial AI squad member that's going to keep their department up to date. And it was actually coined very early on in the school year It was big. So hold it. Students can't use this. No, students can't use this, data privacy and everything along those lines. So one of our curriculum leaders said, so basically what you're saying, this is the year for grown-ups. And we said, yeah, this is the year for grown-ups. Let's go learn what this is all about. Let's really explore it and find out what this can and can't do. And then later on, we can start making decisions about what's it going to look like with students, et cetera. So that was a wonderful decision. And for for teachers that hadn't tried yet, it was like, oh, I didn't try it when it started out. Don't worry, jump in. And I thought that exploration was absolutely fantastic. In December, I remember my boss saying, hey, Ed, I was saying I was getting very frustrated because it was like there was nothing on the horizon that students could use, especially in the state of Connecticut due to our privacy.
Data privacy, yeah.
Right. And he said, oh, you got to get in touch with Matt. And I said, okay, who is this guy? And one thing led to another, and saw you in January at a conference.
CCSU.
Yeah, absolutely wonderful. And a lot of things started to click into place. And then we used Sidekick Academy, got 2 teachers up and running on it. We decided that it was going to be an English teacher and a computer science teacher. And it was absolutely wonderful. We started moving in the direction of, okay, we need representation from all departments. Magic School came out with their Magic student and said, hey, it's available to everybody. And we had a group that decided, hey, really want to run with that. So we had over 40 teachers in the spring that were just starting to pilot AI tools with their students.
So that's fascinating. So teacher year really didn't stay teacher year, right? A little agitated. Now I'm understanding why Doug said you had 2 years in 1 year.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's interesting because, like, I guess, the calendar year, it was,
That's how you've explained it to folks.
You got it. But no, it was really important. First of all, it's like, it's been great. But being part of a team that's really worked to explore this, having, the middle school on board, Debbie Matchett's the tech coach there, Danielle Ross is for the elementary schools. I think if you take a step aside and look at it, South Windsor had the foresight to say, hey, look, let's have tech coaches who are just committed to looking at what are the changes in tech. And AI wasn't even, on anybody's radar back then. But we now have the opportunity to go and research. So a teacher doesn't have to do it. A teacher says, hey, I'm looking for this, and turns it over to us, and we go look. And that's given me the time to really get after artificial intelligence.
It's really neat that there were so many teachers that were on board by the end of the year, because that makes me think that it gave lots of students opportunities to use AI across different subjects, across different grade levels. So the likelihood is that the kids all saw it in some way. What were teachers' reactions by the end of the year, and what did they think of kids using the AI?
Well, it's interesting that it was actually one of your podcasts, I believe it was back in April, and you had 2 stories, one from LA and one from New York City. And one of them was starting to incorporate use students and getting student voice. And so I said, okay, this is a perfect time. So we came back from spring break, we put together a student AI squad. And the thing that I love about working with students is if, they trust you, they're going to tell you exactly what they think. And we've only had 2 go around. So what we did basically to put this student AI squad together is I went to the teachers and I said, hey, look, here's what we're looking for. We want a wide range of students, represent everything about South Windsor High School. Please let me know who it is, and I'll contact. So we've gone 2 go-arounds. Basically, we have 5 from 9th, 10th, and 11th grade each.
Nice.
So I met with them twice during the end of the school year. The first go-around was, what do you think about AI? How are you using it? What's the vibe here at the school and everything like that? So Liz, gets back to your question. It was, it was still a negative word. Basically, no, you don't use it. You don't admit to it and everything along those lines. But students were using it at home, or some students were using it at home. So the second go around is we had them go ahead and play with the AI tools. and their insight is just absolutely amazing. And I then asked the last question at those focus groups, and I said, so what should teachers do to roll this out next year? And that's where we're at right now. The Student AI Squad will stay together, just like all our other groups for teachers.
Let's go back for a second to some of the more challenged reactions from teachers around students using AI in unacceptable ways with respect to academic integrity. And I know we can slice that a lot of different ways. And even though you'll have kids using AI in I always say, a safe, productive, and ethical manner using some of these tools, right? The teachers are designing the prompts. They're able to see the kids' chats. They're able to help build students' prompting literacy, et cetera, et cetera. Right? So all the right ingredients are there for students to learn how to use those in school in an equitable fashion. You're still going to have some kid who is at home and they're going to do the 5-paragraph essay and they're going to turn to ChatGPT and, try to drop that in and hand it in. So what are you doing on that side of the equation to help teachers have the facility and skills to navigate this entire environment? I mean, it's a big question, but what are some of the things that you're thinking about, at least as you move into the fall?
When we started to think about the AI tools that we even wanted to pilot, it had to meet 3 criteria. So the first was it had to meet data privacy beyond a shadow of a doubt. That was 1. 2, it had to have guardrails, the safety aspect, student safety. And then 3, it needed to have teachers that could control what tool was being used, when it was being used, and then be able to see exactly what the student had done.
Right.
If you wanted to, mine down a little bit deeper into it, I could see exactly what Eddie is doing during that session. So that's why Sidekick Academy and Magic Student were the 2 that we considered. Mm-hmm. And I think that's absolutely crucial. The other thing, and you've mentioned it before, and Ethan Mollick and others have mentioned it, we've been trying to keep it as a transactional. Mm-hmm. So Googleized, I go to Google, I do a search, I get the answer, I copy and paste it, maybe give it credit or not, and I've done it, right? And we as an education system, basically we have right and wrong answers. So all you have to do is get the answer and then get out. Well, this is more conversational, and I really buy into that because the prompt writing, if you just have a transactional exchange, one and done, okay, what good was that? Okay, I guess it was, of some value. So to really teach prompt writing the right way and to really be able to see that it's a conversation is really crucial.
We're going to do I don't think we've covered it yet, but we're going to do an episode, something along the lines of grade the prompt and grade the chat transcript, don't grade the essay. I mean, is that what you're sort of thinking about?
Well, I'm a former English teacher, so before I became the tech coach, which I've been doing now for 9 years, 25 years prior, I was an English teacher. So everybody challenges me because English teachers were the first that really had a negative, writing essays is done. So anyway, and I started thinking about it early on. How would I do this as a English teacher? And I think the big thing that we have to understand is that for any assignment, there really needs to be a process. There needs to be a sequence of tasks. And if you start thinking about the task, you start saying to yourself, which task is for me? It's just for me. Which task could I just easily just give over to the bot? And then the one in the middle is the interesting one where it's like, hey, what task could I use AI to have that back and forth to really go after? So let me get back to that English assignment. If it were a paper, I have a brainstorming, I have an initial draft, I have a revision process, I have an editing process, I have the publishing process. All right. So maybe on this particular assignment, I say, hey, the students are going to just take the brainstorming and maybe just do it real quick and then drop it into the bot and see if they can flesh it out, get more ideas. Now, I left the researching out. Well, maybe the researching is going to start with an AI bot, and then it's going to continue and everything along those lines. At first, as an English teacher, I cringe when I think that they're going to be writing, they're going to allow the AI bot to write the first draft. Maybe that's just me. I'm sorry, it's going to have to be the student do that. Great. Now let's go back to the bot and let's use for the editing process, to get feedback. As a former English teacher, we used to do peer response. And it's just like, me looking back, it's like two kids that don't really know what they're supposed to be doing, trying to help each other out. And it's like, hold it. If we have the bot give feedback, then there's another lesson. Which of the feedback did you take? What didn't you take? And basically just keep going there. So it's not an assignment where it's going to be transactional, just one and done, get out of there. It's going to be that process.
Yeah.
And
Love that.
Yeah, I love that for English essays. And we've heard a lot of examples of ways that teachers are using the bot for feedback and for, as Matt said, like maybe the process that you're grading is the process of getting to that final essay rather than exactly what's in the final essay if the kid didn't write it. But if the kid could coach it to get all the way to a great final draft, then that's the skill that you want to measure.
How's it going with the teachers? I mean, that was great the way you just described it to us. Awesome that you have the credentials as a, decades-long English teacher. I'm assuming you've had that conversation with some English teachers in the department at the high school. Like, give us some flavor of that. How are they ingesting, processing, integrating that kind of a strategy? I know it's early days, but just what's the vibe, so to speak?
Well, it's interesting. The English department immediately got this, negative, okay, no way, never going to use it. But when we're all said and done in May, when we look back and said, okay, English teachers, there have been 6 that have been involved in the pilots. And I circled back because one thing that we do want to do leading into next school year is we do want lesson plans, sample lesson plans of how to go ahead and use AI, but across the disciplines. And back to the English, I had one English teacher, she was just using it as a feedback tool. That's the only tool that she was allowing because she really wanted to drill down and understand that. I was so fascinated by how she did that. And then where she is, she's like light years ahead of what I just explained. So yeah, we have some teachers. That's the bottom line. It's whether it's a team that's researching or a team that's exploring and piloting, then sharing what they found is the way that we're going to end up working through all of this.
It's so fun having, someone who's in the field doing this, having this conversation. Before we started recording, we were talking about research and the level of hallucinations. And of course, we're in the summer of rock eating. I swear I don't understand, but every day when I'm out presenting, I'll pick up my phone and I'll ask Google, how many rocks a day shall I eat? And the top result, I think it's just because this article has surfaced now to the top, is consistently you should eat a rock a day. It's not even the AI summary, but boy, can we not fix that somehow? Someone's going to start eating some serious rocks.
The thing that's really cool about all this is when I talk to people outside of my system, we presented at UConn, at the UConn conference back in May, and it was amazing just talking to people about where they were at. And so when we talk to people, it's like, no, we're not using Gemini. We're not using ChatGPT. So the hallucinations and everything like that, just go back to that, those 2 parts of the criteria. Data privacy is huge, and then it's going to be within a controlled system. It's not going to just be out there in the wild, wild west, which you both mentioned. It's like, the break it kind of thing, put it out there and break it. And no, we're not using those systems. I think you both had referred to them as wrapper systems.
Yeah, because they're basically putting a wrapper around one of the APIs and adding some extra guardrails. Exactly.
Right, and that's what we're looking to use. Yeah. I mean, one of the ones that we had looked at right off the bat, because it was the only one out there, was Conmigo. And that's where, just a sidestep, we're struggling right now. It's like math. Math is a real concern right now because Magic School and a lot of others right up front say, Yeah, they really doubt what you get for math.
Including ours.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, so it's, but Conmigo, boy, wow, Khan Academy and what they've done. They've got early access to everything. And, of course, with their engineers and stuff using, now ChatGPT 4.0, I mean, the math is really good. So, yeah, the other rappers need to really come along.
And so what we were discussing before we recorded was actually Perplexity. And I don't know how Perplexity does it, but I generally am finding that the quality of the search results on the research side, right? We have this hybrid, I think we've mentioned before, Perplexity is sort of like a mashup between a large language model and Google. And you had just shared with me that Perplexity is going to be rolling out a Perplexity student. We'll have to see in states like Connecticut with very stringent data privacy laws where that lands. But boy, I would feel so much better. And we have our own student-facing AI tool is really mostly a research and pilot kind of a strategy. That's what you guys have done. I think as you've thought through that, you'll wind up kind of standardizing on Magic School, which was great. Like our whole objective in life is to do what you just shared. Model what those 3 criteria look like, right? But I have a lot of anxiety that so far the wrappers aren't killing the research piece. Brainstorming, ideation, critical thinking, make a timeline. It does
great at all of
it
those
does really
things.
nicely with those. But like if I'm, if my project or my task is around some aerospace engineering content or chemistry or something with some academic heft, I want to make sure that it's not hallucinating. And so it'll be fun to see what does Perplexity do in this world, because they seem to, there's not a lot of rock eating going on or glue mixing in the world of Perplexity so far.
I totally agree with the Perplexity aspect. The more I explore that, the more I'm amazed at what they're doing. You're literally able to, well, first, when I was promoting it way back when, people are like, oh yeah, but if you put this next to ChatGPT, I'm sorry, Ed, it doesn't hold its weight. I said, are you using it as an AI search engine? Like, oh no, what do you mean? Okay, so that became the go-to. And now you can actually click on something, academic. You want the search to be more academic, or they have other options. And then they have a collection, so you don't have to keep writing the same search over and over and over again. You just go to your collection and click on it. Where they're going to go, I'm really excited to see.
Tricky for teachers though, right? And we see this too, Liz. There's so many tools. I refer to this as the Dogpile era, and you have to be old enough to remember Dogpile, the search engine. But if you think back, we had Dogpile, Mama.com, AltaVista, Lycos, Ask Jeeves. And everybody's like, oh yeah, Ask Jeeves. I remember that one. Because honestly, that was like in this litany of tools became the one right before we all standardized on Google.
Right. Yeah. And I think we've been in different communities and have talked about how Claude is a really great writer and Perplexity is a really great researcher and ChatGPT is great for a lot of other things. And that right now there isn't just one tool we send people to, and there isn't just one tool we use. So it's tough for teachers. It's tough for students. When we want them to learn how to use a tool, we don't really have a one tool. It's around.
I think that's a really key point. And as we head into next school year, we can't go in front of our teachers and say, hey, we've got this for this, we've got that for this, that kind of thing.
We've got nothing but time.
So it's going to be, Magic Student is what we're going to use, and now some of the the people that are just, hey, I'm ready for more, might do those things. And then the other thing is, well, things are going to change. And that's not what teachers are really good at. Teachers need to have the structure. They need to know where this is going, the scope and sequence. And we're not going to start next year with much of that. And we're going to be figuring it out. And then it's like everybody wants a 3 to 5 year plan, or let's lock it in for 3 years. And we're like, no, we can't.
Oh my God, could you imagine?
You can't.
6 months at a time, the world feels like it's reinvented. Look at your 2 years in 1 year, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then Google hasn't weighed in, but they already announced Learn LM. And if you just go to that site and you say, oh my, look at what they have available and where they're going. One of the cool features YouTube. So you remember when YouTube was going to destroy education?
Yes, I do. Along with a lot of other things.
Right.
Yes.
And I always keep those examples in mind. It's like, yeah, but look where YouTube is now and where it's going. A student will be able to look at an academic video, be able to figuratively raise her hand, and the video will stop, and the chatbot will pop up, and they have a conversation because she was confused by something or wants to go a little deeper into something. That's what they've announced.
That's in Google LM.
That's
or Learn LM.
Learn LM, the announcement. It's definitely not ready yet.
But you have to imagine that's all going to wind up in Google Classroom. So all the schools, including yours, right? The districts that have standardized on Classroom, all of a sudden this thing's going to be in the mix.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Fascinating.
That reminds me, and we had this conversation before, I got into education late. So I was in my upper 20s, and I was going back to school, and because I wanted to teach. So back then in the late 80s, I got trained in literacy. And literacy back then meant, so it's going to be writing, it's going to be reading, and maybe a little speaking. That's what literacy meant. And that was in 1988, 89. And then we got into 92, 93, and all of a sudden we had this thing called cultural literacy. Okay, what's it mean to be culturally literate?
Do you know this, Liz? Did you read E.D. Hirsch's Cultural Literacy?
Well, those were all the books of like what your fifth grader needs to know, right?
Exactly.
What your fourth grader needs to know. And it was just lists of like 10,000 things that that you needed to know at every grade.
Exactly. And then along came media literacy. How do you read an ad? How do you how are they manipulating you and things along those lines? Which I think a lot of the strategies that we learned in media literacy are still alive and well right now with AI literacy. And then we got to digital literacy, the internet and the cloud, and then now here we are at AI literacy. But we skipped one. We skipped social media. We skipped, social media literacy, phone. What did we do as educators? We said, put those away. They don't exist. And now 15 years later, how'd that one work out? So, yeah. And so we can't miss this right now. AI literacy needs to be taught.
What's your favorite literacy of all the literacies, Ed? I've taught through 10 different literacies.
Media literacy, because I'm such a visual individual, and I just, I love video, I love TV, I love movies, and all that. I just, even watching a sports event and how they capture it, it's just amazing.
And ultimately, they're all integrated, maybe with the exception of E.D. Hirsch.
Yeah, I think about all the different literacies, but kind of media literacy is almost like truth literacy.
Yeah, and then it becomes now, what AI literacies are we teaching? What is an AI literacy? And most people come down to like prompt writing. Okay, the skill that we need to teach, got it. But it's like you keep coming back in your podcast, keep mentioning responsible and ethical use. And I really like that as the overall, that's the umbrella, that's the wide arching goal. Because then, it's like, okay, we're teaching that. How do we teach that? Well, bias and, is the information correct? And that's why I say, well, we can go back to media literacy and start to look at a lot of those things that we're already been teaching. But it's like prompt writing when we come back in fall, will it even be a thing? Because you can already start to see with, DALL-E and some of the other image creators that if you put in a prompt and then what comes out, you end up seeing the prompt and you say, but hold it, that wasn't the prompt I asked. And it's already starting to change it. Oh, well, I think you meant this, is almost what they're telling you.
I'm a better prompt writer than you are. Let me take your really lame prompt so you get a good visual. No, totally right. Yeah. I think, who knows how long prompting is going to remain. So ethical use, productive use, safe use as an umbrella seems like a really nice frame. And also when it jumps off of the chatbot into VR and voice, then the prompting piece becomes less impactful or useful, but there are other literacies then in understanding how to navigate those many also just coming down over and over again to critical thinking, right?
Exactly. And that's the thing. I think critical thinking, if we put it in terms of skills that we teach on a daily basis, like prompt writing for me is just questioning. So I've been teaching as an English teacher questioning strategy for my whole career. So put it in terms that we can understand, but then understand how AI is a little different. One thing that we did well, I think, besides just having teachers explore so they could really understand what this tool was capable of and what it couldn't do, is not calling it AI, calling it where it's an AI tool. And the minute you put tool at the end of it, it's the humans in control, which is something comes back to Ethan Mollick, the human in the loop, which is so key. And again, that whole thing is like, if you're just being transactional, it's not going to be anything. But if you're the human in the loop and you're part of the process and you're using it as a tool, then we keep our humanity as well.
I thought when you were saying that you would characterize it beyond artificial intelligence, you were going to pull an Apple. This is a little inside baseball, right? But Apple has recharacterized AI as Apple intelligence as opposed to artificial intelligence. So unfortunately with South Windsor, that doesn't work as well. But if you're Avon, Connecticut, you could be Avon intelligence, right? Which is not that far away. Let's come back to some district stuff. So you're really like firing on lots of cylinders: teacher facing, student facing, PD, tech coaches, student squad. Where are you with the kind of guideline document, policy document, not just for the purposes of, oh my gosh, we have a document, but more because safe and ethical use might be an umbrella. How are you all thinking about how to document that and then communicate, have protocols around it, have parents and board members and community members understand it?
So if educators out there right now listening to this and saying, boy, it sounds overwhelming, the one thing that I can say is there are tons of resources out there. Our big one was Teach AI.
Yeah.
Teach AI's toolkit, it has to be a go-to. So we basically went through that document, and our guidelines taken right from Teach AI.
Perfect.
Yeah. So you look at a lot of those things. When do people come on board, like parents right now? We haven't informed or anything along those lines. Not keeping a secret, but not ready yet. As for policy, no way, not at all. I understood very early on in this whole process that a policy means you go to the Board of Ed, everything needs to be changed, lawyers need to get involved, and it's like, yeah, there's no way we're close to that.
In some cases, it takes a long time, right? And
Exactly.
To your point that this is moving fast, a policy would be outdated in a couple months.
Exactly. And we've really been very clear about that with our staff. In April, we got the entire faculty meeting. So we decided, all right, let's go. And we broke up into stations and we did rotations. And one was guidelines, take a look at them. Second was teacher expectations. Here's some samples. What are you thinking about for yours? And then the third station was, how, not best practices, but what are possible ways to use it in the classroom. So I don't know if I answered the entire question, but those are some of the parts that come to mind.
Ed, say a little bit more about teacher expectations. That's an interesting one.
What we're saying there, basically at the beginning of the school year, teacher goes in front of his or her class and says, all right, here are the expectations for how we're using AI or we're not using AI. It's not going to be something that's going to be mandatory. So basically the teacher is able to say, look, I'm going to go ahead and open up a tool. You can use it there, or I'm going to open this up, tutor me. It could be at home, whatever it is. And we're not going to have one standard teacher expectation for the entire school. Some have asked for that, but I think they very early on saw that for each department it might be different. And then I know that administration will go ahead and encourage that a PLC, so like 9th grade English, let's get some commonality there. But for the most part, we're going to definitely tend to leave it up to a teacher.
So as long as the kids know the expectation for each class. All right, cool.
Exactly.
Let me throw you a curveball. So I was working with a planning team, AI planning team. One of the things they were doing were setting some of these guidelines, like the Teach AI Toolkit. I agree. I love that. Students were on this planning team, and we were working on the first draft of the guideline document, and the first group to report out was a student, a parent, and a teacher. And they said, okay, expectation number 1 is that when students use AI, they'll cite the use of AI, right? Everybody's like nodding. Then they say, and when teachers use AI, they'll cite that they use AI. And then the nodding changed a little bit. And I'm facilitating a lot of student or AI planning teams. This is really one of the very few that have students. And if the kid wasn't there, there's no way that statement would have been made. I don't know. Like, what do you make of that? And by the way, I said it's a curveball because kids and teachers aren't the same, right? They have not developed some of the useful cognitive skills that teachers have when they go and they write the lesson plan. But what's your sense of like this whole teachers should, and I don't, whatever Ed says in the record here, people, the whole world's going to change in 6 months, so don't hold them to it.
I think it's a wonderful thing to have, an absolute wonder. I mean, we should be modeling, right, what we want to see. So I know that I've had people in my pilot, been piloting the AI tools, have done exactly that and showed. And even when, AI was a 4-letter word at the high school, we had teachers that were saying, hey, look, I went to ChatGPT, I got this, and would be openly showing it up on the screen. Huh. It was wonderful. That was the start to actually teaching it and starting to break down the walls. And one of the things that the Student AI Squad said repeatedly for the start next school year is take the guilt out of it right off the bat.
Nice.
And there has been a guilt that's been put to it.
Yeah.
We've talked about that in one of our episodes about the guilt. And then we also talked about in a higher education study, the relationship of trust, where the students trusted the teachers who were the most open and honest about using the tool instead of like, oh no, I'm not using it. But the kids know. I mean, the same tells that we have as teachers, the kids can kind of figure out. And it does just give such a sense of trust and openness. And if the students are going to have to reveal it, then the teachers should have to say. I don't know. I wonder about if I use ChatGPT to help write a parent letter home, do I put at the bottom ChatGPT wrote this parent letter, or what do we need to cite and when do we need to cite the use? Absolutely in an academic context, but every time I use it to help me edit an email, do I have to say?
Sure, not all things are created equal. And, I think if the goal is, I love where you guys are with it in the district, if the goal is to help sure that it's, creating that sense of trust and shared expectations and shared responsibility, modeling it here and there is great. It doesn't have to be every second. I wrote my wife a holiday card and I use ChatGPT. It does not seem like it's a requirement.
It's interesting. We have a school of thought, a group of people that are basically saying, no, you shouldn't have to cite it because you're going to go back and forth with the bot and you're going to craft it together. You have to cite that every time. The world we're heading into, we're not going to have to do that. And my only pushback or rationale for having them cite it is look, this is the transitional step that I think we need to have, especially because that's the way we've been trained, right? So I love the idea of let's go ahead and show we're doing the exact same things that we're asking of our students.
And with citing, I was thinking about didn't initially when you sent an email through your phone, it said that it came from your iPhone, or to excuse typos if you were dictating. So does that just become the little thing on the bottom that says ChatGPT may have been used? Or
99% of everything we send says Perplexity says, ChatGPT says, Gemini says.
And now working in the closed systems, the teacher's going to know where it came from and everything along those lines. Conmigo, I was listening to Sal Khan and narrate his new book. It was just basically an advertisement for Conmigo. But anyway, one of the things, it's the bot is actually reporting back to the teacher and saying, okay, here's where we're at. and it's a team effort. It's amazing, right? And if the kid goes to ChatGPT and gets it all, just, copies and pastes it and puts it in, the bot will rat him out. Basically say, yeah, we never worked on that.
It's like the ever-looking, ever-observant parent, nanny, tutor. I mean, it's super powerful, but yeah, the kids are bristling.
I can see why.
So this has been so much information and such great conversation. And as you think about all these different things, how are you evaluating what's happening as a district or you personally?
That's a huge question, one that we've been asking and haven't come up with a lot of good answers yet, usage and all those kind of things, the typical things. But the one that's intrigued me the most has been something that Sal Khan had mentioned back a year ago, March, when he was introducing Conmigo, and he talked about Benjamin Bloom. Actually, you have talked about it on your podcast as well. Benjamin Bloom, the 2 Sigma problem. And quick, if I can just capsulize it really fast. This is back in 1984. If you're looking at a conventional classroom, you're looking at a very traditional bell curve. So you've got the vertical axis with a number of students, say 30, and then you have the horizontal, which is summative achievement scores. I'm not really big on this stuff. So anyway, you look at a very typical bell curve.
Sure.
Great. Now, Bloom was advocating for mastery learning. He said, hey, if mastery learning comes along, so hey, we're not just going to move on to the next thing because the curriculum calls for it. We're going to make sure that everybody masters it before moving it on. They're going to move it positively 1 sigma. So that's significant because you're moving the average to the above average, you're moving the below, et cetera.
Yep.
And then he said the one that's even better than that is 1-to-1 tutoring. But it's a problem because it's unrealistic. Well, that was 1984. Now we're in 2024. And if we can move student understanding 2 sigma over because of a personal tutor aspect to it, I think that's well worth trying to chart. Now, somebody smarter than me is going to have to try to figure out how we do that. But I think, at South Windsor, we can start to figure this out. And actually, the one thing that I'm excited about this opportunity being here is we would love to collaborate with other school systems. We definitely would want, it's an opening conversation, and together we can all figure this out.
Yeah, and some of that is about how is that personal tutor sort of a complement to the teacher's work, right? So if you've seen Sal Khan and his son's demo of ChatGPT 4.0, if you haven't, just YouTube around, you'll find it. Although it's funny, I heard a follow-up interview with him. His son's not doing that math. His son is doing like college level.
Genius, like math.
So he was kind of faking it, but he did a beautiful job being like, I think the hypotenuse. All right. Anyhow, I digress. Sorry. When you look at that, it's clear that the AI may get really good at helping kids build knowledge and skills. Like, what is it? What do I need to do? How do I do it? But then all the collaboration, problem solving, empathy, all the kind of human skills that might happen through a more applied, durable, project-based type of environment. So, I wonder, I love the 2 Sigma growth. Like, that's a great target. And I'm just wondering what it will look like when the AI tutor is a complement to the teacher and the work that the teacher does in the classroom. Because some people see that video and go, that's it for teachers. And for all sorts of reasons, I think that's a totally erroneous argument. But we do need to think about if the tutor is going to do some of the lifting, where is the teacher human strength really kind of brought to the table?
Exactly. It's like, okay, so I envision the tutor at home and true flipped classroom.
Right.
True. I mean, we tried to, we tried to get there during the pandemic years, but this would be true flipped classroom. So therefore, now they come back to the class. Great. Teachers, educators, what are we doing in class that can really get beyond content, that can start using the content, all the things that we've come up just a little short on.
Yeah. come up a little short on. I like that. That's nice. All right, so you're still enjoying summer. This is an audio podcast, but Ed looks great. He's had some sun already. He's out hiking and going to the beach and doing all sorts of good stuff. Poor Liz and I, we just are laboring. These regional nonprofit education centers, they just work us all summer.
All the time.
Right.
Working.
If you think towards the beginning of the school year, is there like a catchphrase or a tagline or a theme? You're one of the people that's going to be really, kicking off the year, and AI is going to be a big part of that. What's knocking around in your head for one of those hooks for teachers and parents and the like?
Actually, it came up in a year ago, January, at the conference. So the keynote speaker was Dan Fitzpatrick.
Yep.
And he made the statement. He said, there's a new digital divide. The haves have access to AI and the skills to use AI tools. The have-nots do not have access, nor the skills. And we want our students to be the haves. So that has been a guiding focus straight through this process and will continue again. But the other thing that happened during graduation, our superintendent in her graduation speech talked about emerging technologies and to the class of 2024. And she stated, I have no doubt you will see and experience remarkable advancements through this emerging technology. I hope you will also stay grounded in the human experience, which that's going to be our new focus or a continuing focus.
I like it.
Yeah. Stay human.
Stay human, people. AI tutors at home, project-based learning in school, cell phones in pouches. No, I'm just kidding. We're not touching that little bit. We'll end with stay human, people.
Yeah.
Let's roll the credits.
All right. As always, we'd love to hear what you think, so please let us know at ChatEDU@edadvance.org. That's EDADVANCE.org. And also rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you are using. ChatEDU is brought to you by EdAdvance, the nonprofit regional education service center in Litchfield, Connecticut. ChatEDU is recorded, edited, and produced by Ahmed Malik, whose dedication and expertise bring our discussions to life. ChatEDU's executive producer is Cameron Audia. Additionally, we are grateful for the support of our colleague Gary Robinson. Gary is the ChatEDU Design and Outreach Ginsu Knife, and we appreciate his time and talents. And of course, a big ChatEDU shout out to our fearless leader and executive director, Jonathan Costa, for inspiring the pod. And finally, a heartfelt thank you to our listeners for joining us on this journey exploring the thoughtful and innovative integration of AI in education.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jonathan Costa, and I am the Executive Director at EdAdvance, the regional nonprofit educational service center in Litchfield, Connecticut. On behalf of Matt and Liz and our entire agency, I want to thank you for listening to our ChatEDU podcast. We'll be dropping episodes weekly, and you'll hear some special interview episodes during the summer. Finally, keep an eye out this fall for our expanding AI community of practice and new AI micro-credentials for teachers and educational leaders. Take care, and thanks again, and tell your friends about ChatEDU.